There is a particular kind of loneliness that no one really talks about. It is not the loneliness of an empty apartment on a Friday night, or the silence of eating alone at a restaurant. It is far more confusing than that, and in many ways, far more painful. It is the loneliness you feel in a crowded room. The loneliness that creeps in while you are laughing at a party, nodding along in a conversation, or sitting at a table surrounded by people who are supposed to be your people. You are physically present, but emotionally you are somewhere far away, behind glass, watching everyone else connect in ways that feel inexplicably out of reach for you. If you have ever felt this way, I want you to know something important. You are not broken. You are not dramatic. And you are most certainly not alone in feeling alone. What you are experiencing has a name, it has roots, and most importantly, it has an explanation. Psychologists call this experience social loneliness versus emotional loneliness. Social loneliness is the absence of people around you. Emotional loneliness, however, is something entirely different. It is the absence of genuine connection, the feeling that even though bodies surround you, no one is truly seeing you. No one is reaching the real you, and the painful irony is that the more people around you, the more invisible that real version of you can feel. So where does this come from? Why do some people move through the world feeling perpetually unseen, even in the middle of connection? For many people, this feeling traces back to something that happened long before adulthood. Think about early childhood, a time when your emotional needs were either met, partially met, or consistently overlooked. Children who grew up in environments where vulnerability was discouraged, where emotions were dismissed with phrases like "stop being so sensitive" or "you're overreacting," learned something quietly devastating, that the truest parts of themselves were not welcome. So they adapted. They became performers of connection rather than participants in it. They learned to smile at the right moments, say the right things, present a version of themselves that felt acceptable, while quietly tucking the real self away somewhere safer. This is not a conscious decision. It is a survival strategy. And survival strategies, when practiced long enough, become personality. They become the automatic way you move through every room, every relationship, every gathering. You become fluent in the language of surface-level connection while remaining emotionally illiterate in the language of intimacy, not because you do not crave it, but because some deep, conditioned part of you does not fully believe it is safe. This is why people who feel lonely in crowds often describe a very specific sensation, the exhaustion of being on. They can be wonderfully engaging, funny, charming, warm, even magnetic to those around them. But behind that performance, there is a quiet, aching awareness that what everyone is responding to is the performance, not the person. And that awareness creates distance. It says, they don't really know me. And if they knew me, the real me, they might not stay. That belief, that the real self is somehow too much, too needy, too complicated, or not enough, is at the core of this kind of loneliness. Psychologists recognize this as a pattern deeply tied to attachment theory, specifically what is known as an avoidant or anxious avoidant attachment style. People with this attachment pattern often crave closeness intensely while simultaneously protecting themselves from it. They long to be truly known by others, but the moment someone gets too close, a kind of internal alarm sounds. Pull back, deflect, change the subject, make a joke, because closeness feels like risk, and risk, to a nervous system that has been hurt before, feels like danger. This internal push and pull is exhausting in ways that are hard to articulate to someone who has never experienced it. You can sit across from your closest friend and still feel like there is an ocean between you. You can be held by someone who loves you and still feel profoundly alone, not because the love is not real, but because some part of you has never fully learned how to let it in. There is also something worth understanding about the role of emotional masking, the habitual suppression or concealment of your true emotional state in social settings. Research in psychology consistently shows that people who feel chronically unseen in social situations often have highly developed emotional masking skills. They have spent years reading the room, adjusting their affect, mirroring the energy of those around them. In doing so, they make everyone around them feel comfortable, while quietly starving themselves of the very authenticity they are craving. Every masked emotion is another brick in the wall between who you are and who the world gets to see. And then there is the matter of vulnerability. True connection, the kind that dissolves loneliness, requires it. It requires letting someone see you falter, doubt, struggle, or simply exist without the armor on. But for people who carry this particular loneliness, vulnerability does not feel like a bridge. It feels like a cliff, because at some point, usually early, being vulnerable led to being hurt, being open led to being dismissed, being real led to being too much or not enough. So the self learned to stay behind the wall, safer there, quieter there, lonelier there. What makes this so quietly devastating in everyday life is how invisible it is to others. People who feel this way are rarely the ones others worry about. They show up, they contribute, they hold space beautifully for the pain of those around them. From the outside, they seem fine, sometimes better than fine. They seem connected, capable, and present, which means the loneliness they carry has no obvious place to land. No one thinks to ask if they are okay, because they always seem okay. And asking for help feels almost impossible when you have spent a lifetime being the one who has it together. This loneliness also quietly shapes relationships over time. Without awareness, the pattern sustains itself. You keep people at a manageable distance. Conversations stay in comfortable, shallow waters. When someone tries to go deeper, you redirect. When a relationship starts to demand more emotional presence than you know how to offer, you withdraw, sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, and in the spaces that withdrawal creates, the loneliness grows louder. But here is what I want you to hear, and I want you to hear it gently. The fact that you can feel this loneliness, the fact that it aches, is not a flaw. It is evidence of your longing. It is proof that something in you still reaches for connection, still believes it is possible, still hopes to be known. That longing is not a weakness. It is the most human thing about you. And longing, when we become conscious of it, becomes the beginning of change. Healing from this kind of loneliness is not about forcing yourself to be more open, or pressuring yourself into vulnerability you are not yet ready for. It begins far more quietly than that. It begins with honesty, with yourself. First, acknowledging that the wall exists, recognizing the moments when you retreat behind it, noticing the performance without judging it, asking yourself, gently and with curiosity, what am I afraid would happen if I let someone see this part of me? It means slowly, carefully, choosing one safe person, not the whole room, just one, and offering them something real, a fear, a doubt, a truth you have kept tucked away, and sitting with whatever happens next. It means understanding that connection is a skill, and like all skills, it can be relearned. The nervous system that learned fear can learn safety. The self that learned to hide can learn, slowly, that it is welcome. Therapy, particularly approaches rooted in attachment work or internal family systems, can be a profound support in this process. But even without formal support, the simple act of becoming aware, of seeing the pattern, naming it, and choosing not to disappear behind it, is already a form of healing. You were not made to watch life from behind glass. You were made for the kind of connection that sees all of you, the polished parts and the raw ones, the composed and the complicated. That connection is possible, not someday, not when you are finally fixed or finally enough. Now, exactly as you are.